Hello, I'm Sally and I'm going to discuss the nature and purpose of the budgeting process. The budgeting process is necessary for any organisation in order for them to manage their finances, primarily to ensure they have the funds to complete tasks in accordance with their industry. Secondly, all companies set objectives and strategies which usually relate to growth and financial stability. The budgeting process is essential here because it provides monetary organisation to ensure funds are available to all vital sectors and resources before allocating money to growth planning. The process consists of three main steps: identifying of activities, gather figures in terms of revenue, evaluate how important they are to the company's value. Within the budgeting process, an organisation will identify activities required for corporate strategy to decide upon the most essential costs. Information is then gathered to estimate the expected revenue compared with costs and forecast numbers as accurately as possible. They must then evaluate these to decide how much effect they will have on each aspect on the future value of the company. The purpose of this is to fund the most valuable assets to fuel the increase of the business's value. In order to do this, they must observe which elements of the company produce the most revenue. For example, I found on the Tesco's website that their corporate objective is to provide best value for money and have the most competitive prices. The purpose of the budget in this case is to ensure the company doesn't overspend. If that were to happen, it would drive up the costs of their products. The budgeting process also allows a company to identify that research into current market industry is essential to guarantee they're providing customers with the best value for money in comparison to their competitors, and sufficient funds are delegated to ensure this can take place. Moving on to how the process aids a business to achieve their strategy. In terms of strategy, it usually refers to where and what a company will produce, or what services will take place and where. Again, using Tesco as an example, the budgeting process allows monetary organisation. If Tesco allocate the correct and accurate finance required and abide by this budget, the profits for the company can also be predicted once revenue is taken into account. If Tesco's can accurately predict profits, they are able to plan for development, such as innovation of products and store, or even build new stores and expand the business. Another purpose for Tesco was it allowed them to launch their Building a Better Tesco scheme and invest $1 billion into 6 aspects of their organisation. I found this again on their website. The aspects are service, store format, range, value, marketing, and the online sector. Of course, with the development of technology, having an online sector which is fully effective and efficient will drive up revenue. This may be an example of where budgeting is a negative. If the company allocated $1 billion to this sector, this works as an aim for the company and encourages them to spend more than is necessary. The process is needed to guarantee money funds are available for investment, as well as outline the importance of the investment activity, meaning the company will continue to include funds for investment in the budget and maintain the standards they created through the scheme. Although allocating the large amount of $1 billion may have been an overestimate and led to the company spending excessively, which changes funds from the most they can possibly spend to a target of what they should spend. The budgeting process is used as a planning tool, as it allows a company to observe how much of their finance they can delegate to innovation and development. Not only this, but the company must consider all resources, including fixed costs such as rental and wages, and the nature of the process also allows a business to coordinate all their resources. Incremental budgeting is one option for businesses. This budget is prepared based on previous budgets and the previous data, or the actual performance of the previous period. The allocation of resources is based on where they were allocated previously. The process allows managers to operate departments on a consistent basis, meaning departments can function in a similar fashion to the previous period if suitable finance was assigned originally. Although, if that department struggled previously, then this problem will continue. Despite this, having a written budget may resolve conflicts, as it's evident that all departments are treated similarly and fairly. There are disadvantages to this process though, the main one being the possibility that activities and methods may alter over the years and the budget becomes out of date. Aspects which may alter over time are fuel costs, wages, and rental. An example in terms of fuel is where the previous period budgeted £10,000 for fuel. The new budget should take into consideration the rate of inflation. If inflation was to increase by 3%, the budget for the upcoming period should delegate £10,300 to fuel costs. This issue may also arise if the minimum wage was to increase between periods, because the company must ensure all their staff are treated in accordance with the law and paid what is outlined in their age category. There is an alternative for organisation in terms of budgeting. The other option is zero-based budgeting process. It's said that this process allows companies to prevent the budget increasing each year with inflation. A zero-based budget is one which is prepared with no relevance to historical data. All activity is treated and questioned as if it was a new activity. All actions must be analysed in terms of their cost and how much financial gain the organisation will achieve, with the purpose to either justify them or not. The advantages to this budgeting process are it encourages the company to analyse every single aspect because it links allocation to resources to areas in demand and need and focuses on weaknesses in the organisation. This allows improvement. Another advantage is, back to my earlier point about preventing the increase of the budget. With incremental budgeting, the rate of inflation, for example, is simply added onto the budget each year as a percentage, meaning each year the budget will increase whether it's necessary or not to in line with inflation. Zero-based forces organisations to analyse whether the increase is necessary or not, and potentially result in a lower budget than if they used the other method. Being encouraged to question all aspects of the organisation allows the company to embark on new innovations, as opposed to remaining with the current procedures. For example, again, when it comes to fuel, there may be alternatives as development progresses over years. I found on a website relating to fuel costs, comparing fuel in England and in the US and alternative methods of fuel. One that I found was hydrogen fuel, which is said to be half the cost of conventional fuels, although it is much less common in the UK. Despite this, the innovation in this area can be considered when using a zero-based budgeting process. My research has found that per kilogram of hydrogen fuel, a vehicle can travel up to 81 miles, whereas a vehicle running on 1 gallon of gasoline is expected to travel between 18 and 31 miles. Meaning hydrogen fuel is more efficient for an organisation as it's refuelling less often and at a lower cost. The money a company saves in this area can fund another area of the company which needs development. Of course, with the It's less common in the UK, but with the money that they save, they can invest in the potential of increasing its use in the UK. Moving on, often organisations will revise or begin a new budget quarterly throughout the year. Zero-based budgeting allows for seasonal variations to be distinguished. For a simple example, take a company which deals specifically with producing and selling coats. During the colder seasons, the company will budget more in terms of production and distribution in comparison to the warmer seasons, as they must consider supply and demand. But despite there being possible financial benefits, the company must undergo a lengthy process because a methodical analysis is very time-consuming when done correctly. Put into practice, I read that incremental budgeting is a quick, easy and cheap way of producing a budget for large organisations with many cost centres. From this, I would suggest that large companies such as Tesco's or Sainsbury's may use this approach as they own many stores across the country, and in order for them to keep up with the high level of competition in their industry. The disadvantage of the process also indicate incremental as the process which Sainsbury's would choose. One of the disadvantages is that activities don't need to be justified, therefore they'll be undertaken because they were performed in the previous period. This is not necessarily seen as a disadvantage to companies such as Sainsbury's. The Sainsbury's website said that in 2011 the organisation won Supermarket of the Year, which they continued to win for a further 3 executive years. This indicates that their budget has allowed them to achieve a successful strategy through the allocation of resources. If the organisation was to continue investing in the areas which fueled their accomplishment, they should theoretically continue with the same success. Although a statement from Professor of Political Science Alan Schick may indicate why large companies such as Sainsbury's would opt for zero-based budgeting. He said, "Budgeting is a process consisting of a series of activities relating to expenditures relating to a set of goals." Schick put particular focus on the importance of budgeting in terms of these goals or objectives. A large company such as Sainsbury's must set new objectives on a regular basis to maintain competitive in the industry. In an article that I found in The Guardian, during the Christmas period, all 4 of the major supermarket chains are expected to have seen reduced sales, whilst Aldi and Lidl both had double-digit growth. In response to this, serious financial consideration must be undertaken by the Big 4 supermarkets. In order to do this, I would recommend performing a zero-based budget for the upcoming period, as it allows the organisation to question and analyse where the resources are being distributed and whether they can reduce spending in certain areas. It may be argued that emerging companies such as Aldi and Lidl benefit from using zero-based process. The Sainsbury's website states that the organisation was founded in London in 1869 and became the largest grocery retailer in the UK in 1922. Being the largest organisation suggests that their profits were much greater than their competitors and therefore less pressure to innovate or reduce costs. Although with the introduction of emerging retailers with possible lower prices, such as Aldi in 1989, Sainsbury's were under more pressure to have a stricter budget and focus their monetary organisation on keeping their competitive lead. For this, I would suggest that the more concentration in industry becomes the more useful it is for an organisation to use zero-based budgeting, as it avoids wasting money on unnecessary expenditure. Moving on to budgeting for an organisation on a much smaller scale. For example, a successful independent store such as Sugar Shamrocks in the small town of Melton Mowbray. Budgeting on this scale is much more simple. This store employs only 3 members of staff, including the manager, who is also the owner. The manager is aware the age and circumstance of all its employees and is confident that throughout the year the staffing will remain the same, with no changes in their age, meaning their wage expenditure can easily be calculated. She is also ensured that the rent of the premises will not increase, therefore these costs can be budgeted the same as the previous period. In terms of zero-based, she must consider all repairs that need fixing and any improvements she wishes to make. In this scenario, I would suggest that zero-based budgeting is the most effective because most calculations can be easily achieved. Its past success avoids pressure for innovation, and there are much less factors to be considered, meaning the supposed disadvantages of it being time-consuming are not there. Thank you.